Los Angeles, 1990. Inside a Pacific Bell switching office, a single screen glows in the dark with a list no civilian is ever supposed to see. The phone numbers the FBI has secretly ordered tapped. Mobsters, a foreign consulate, even the ACLU. And the man reading that list, calmly, line by line, is the exact man the FBI is hunting across the country. His name is Kevin Poulsen, Dark Dante, 24 years old on the federal wanted list, sitting inside the machinery of American surveillance like he owns it. Because he does. Consider the nerve this takes. While the most powerful law enforcement agency on Earth searches for his face, he seizes every phone line into a Los Angeles radio station, makes himself caller number 102, and wins a Porsche 944, a fugitive, winning a sports car. On the phones, the FBI can't keep him off of. The Bureau built an all-seeing machine to watch everyone. What it never understood is that the machine ran on ordinary phone wires. And for a few years, one obsessive kid in an apartment owned those wires more completely than the government did. So two questions hang over everything that follows. How does a single outsider climb inside the FBI's own wiretaps? And how do you catch a man who can hear you coming? He does get caught, but how it finally happened is stranger than anything he ever pulled. And the man who never missed a threat coming down the wire never saw this one coming at all. (1979), a bedroom in the San Fernando Valley, curtains pulled against the afternoon glare. A 13-year-old sits cross-legged on the carpet with the family telephone unscrewed in his lap, its wiring spread across a school book he never opens for school. He isn't calling anyone. He dials a number, listens to the pitch climbing in the earpiece, hangs up before it rings, dials again. A click travels back down the line. Somewhere across the city, a switch just answered him. Not a person, a machine, throwing a relay because he told it to. He does it again to be sure. Same click, same answer, every single time. That was the thing the network gave him that nobody in his life did. It was honest. Ask it the same question, and it never lied, never changed its mind, never got bored halfway through. People were noise. The machine had rules, and if you learned the rules well enough, the machine belonged to you. Kevin Lee Poulsen was born in late 1965. The voices on the telephone never interested him. What gripped him was everything underneath the voices, the switches, the trunks, the dial tones, the whole invisible apparatus that carried a billion conversations and never once explained itself. Most kids saw a telephone. Kevin saw a door. By his mid-teens, under the handle Dark Dante, he could bend the Los Angeles phone network into shapes it was never built to hold. Rerouting calls, unlocking lines, slipping through doors the engineers didn't know existed. Then, at 17, he went further. He broke into ARPANET, the military-run ancestor of the internet, the network wiring defense computers together across the country. A teenager, hands inside the American war machine. And when they caught him, they ran into a wall of their own making. He was too young to charge. The most sensitive computer network in the country closed a hand around him and had to open it again. At 17, he was a few months short of the age that turns a kid into a felon, so they let him walk. He took the wrong lesson from it. The system built to watch everyone had soft edges, and he just put his fingers through one. Then the strangest turn of all, the government hired him. A defense contractor called SRI International, a research outfit doing serious work for the Pentagon, brought Kevin Poulsen on as a programmer, gave him a security clearance, sat him down inside a building full of classified military communications, and paid him to help protect them. By day, a cleared professional trusted with the nation's secrets, badge on his chest, paycheck in his pocket. By night, the best phone hacker in the country, breaking into the exact infrastructure his day job was sworn to defend. The state had a problem it couldn't see. It had found the one outsider most capable of reading its secrets, handed him a clearance, and set him loose beside the machinery. The fox wasn't just near the henhouse. He was on the payroll. And Kevin was already looking past the military systems. There was one network bigger than all of them. One system that touched every home, every office, every wiretap in America. He was about to make it his. Pacific Bell ran the phone system for most of California. Millions of lines. Thousands of switching offices humming inside anonymous buildings you've walked past and never noticed. To the public, it was a utility. To Kevin Poulsen, It was the single most valuable thing in the state, because every call, every connection, and every wiretap in California passed through it. So he took it, and the first tool was a dumpster. Late at night, behind a phone company building, Kevin went waist-deep in the garbage a giant corporation throws out without thinking. Coffee grounds, shredded paper, and if you were patient enough, and he was, a discarded employee ID badge, a name, a photo, a way to look like you belonged. He learned to pick the locks on Pacific Bell's central offices. When a lock wouldn't give, he cut it off and fitted his own, so he could come and go as he pleased. Picture an empty switching office at 2 a.m, boots on cold concrete, racks of equipment blinking in the dark, a young man moving through it like a night shift technician who forgot to exist on any schedule. He took manuals and keys and access codes and internal directories that told him exactly who to impersonate and what to say. He was building the thing most hackers never bother with, a complete physical map of the machine stolen one break-in at a time. And then he found it. Deep inside the network sat a system called SAS, a testing platform the phone company used to check its own lines. Here's what you need to understand about SAS. It was built to let a technician reach into any circuit in the network and listen to it, just to confirm the line worked. Any line, silently, without the customer ever knowing. The phone company had built, purely for its own convenience, a master key to the nervous system of American communication, a tool that could quietly monitor any conversation in the state. And now that key belonged to Dark Dante? Kevin Poulsen never bothered to hack the FBI. He owned the network the FBI's wiretaps ran on, the wires, the switches, the testing systems, all of it. The most powerful surveillance apparatus on Earth was renting space in a house Kevin had the keys to. He had the master key. Now he wanted to prove what it could do, in the most public way imaginable. A master key is worth nothing until you turn it where someone's watching. So Kevin turned his where a whole city could hear. Los Angeles radio ran on call-in contests. Dial fast, redial faster, punch through the busy signal at exactly the right half second, and maybe you're the winning caller when the prize drops. Cash, trips, cars. For everyone else in the city, winning was luck. For the man who owned the switch every one of those calls passed through, luck never entered into it. So he started winning. Not once, over and over, each prize collected under a name that wasn't his. A little cash, a Hawaiian vacation, a car, pulled off the airwaves while the station cheered a stranger who didn't exist. Think about what that means. A man who could silently own the entire California phone network could have drained a fortune and never surfaced. Instead, he kept stepping into the light, making himself the winner on live radio again and again. It was never about the money. It was a signature, proof that one person controlled the network everybody else simply trusted. And if he could do this to a radio station, out in the open, imagine what he could do to a phone line nobody was ever supposed to know existed. But Kevin wasn't working all of those nights alone. There was a small circle of phone freaks who spoke his language, and one of them mattered more than the rest. A lean, fast-talking hacker named Justin Peterson, who went by Agent Steele. Picture the two of them after midnight in a cramped apartment. The table buried under handsets and butt sets and a rat's nest of alligator clips. A couple of beers going flat. One of them hums a tone down a line. The other names the switch. It just tripped before the sound even fades. They finish each other's tricks. They trade access codes like baseball cards and crack up when a supervisor's private extension answers to a password it should never have. Peterson wanted exactly what Kevin had, understood exactly how he'd gotten it, and for a while they were the only two people alive who laughed at the same things at 3 a.m. Remember him. Remember the flat beer and the alligator clips and the shared jokes. You'll want them later. Right now, Kevin has proven the master key works out in the open. The real question is where else he can point it. And the answer is, the one place on Earth no one should ever look. The FBI's method carried a weakness buried inside it. When the Bureau wanted to listen to someone, it couldn't lay a secret pipeline of its own. It went to the phone company, and the phone company quietly flipped a switch, routing a copy of that person's calls straight to the agents who wanted them, which meant the Bureau's most sensitive secrets didn't live in a hardened vault at Quantico. They lived in the switches, in Kevin's switches, so he read them. Using the same control that let him rig a radio contest, he began pulling up what Pacific Bell kept hidden inside its own network. And what surfaced there stopped being a game. He could see the lines the FBI had ordered tapped. He could see the numbers registered to the Bureau's undercover front businesses, the fake companies agents used to run investigations, the ones whose entire value depended on nobody ever knowing they were fake. He could see who the government was afraid of. The targets read like a map of who the state considered dangerous: suspected mobsters, a foreign consulate on American soil, and the American Civil Liberties Union, an organization whose whole job is watching the government being watched by the government and now watched right back by a kid in an apartment. Sit with that. The FBI existed to watch. That was its power, its whole mystique. The sense that somewhere, someone official was listening, and you could never be sure it wasn't you. Millions of people arranged their lives around that quiet fear. And every bit of it ran on a phone system one obsessive outsider now read like a morning paper. This answers the first question the whole story hangs on. How does a single outsider get inside the FBI's own wiretaps? He never touches the Bureau's door. He waits for the government to route its own secrets straight into his hands. But the moment Kevin looked at that list, he crossed a line he could never step back over. A hacker who wins a car is a nuisance, a fraud case, a headline. A hacker who has seen the FBI's active wiretaps and its undercover fronts is a national security problem. A man who knows things the state will do almost anything to keep buried. He had just become someone the government could never let walk free. And here's the part they hadn't worked out yet. The phantom in their switches, the one they were calling Dark Dante, wasn't a stranger at all. They'd already had him in handcuffs at 17. They'd already handed him a clearance and paid him to guard their secrets. They just hadn't joined the man to the ghost. That connection was sitting in a rented storage locker. They never cracked it open themselves. A storage locker did it for them. Kevin had rented one somewhere in Los Angeles and filled it with the tools of his double life. Then he stopped paying. The notices went unanswered, and by the dull rules that govern storage units everywhere, the facility cut his lock and rolled the door open to resell the space. Inside sat stolen phone company equipment, manuals that were never supposed to leave a Pacific Bell building, blank IDs, the raw material of invented people. It all went to the FBI, and there the two halves finally met. The phantom in the wires they'd been chasing as Dark Dante was the same Kevin Poulsen they'd arrested at 17 and later trusted with a clearance. The name and the crime snapped together into one federal case, the kind that doesn't close and doesn't cool. The god of the network, undone by an unpaid storage bill. Kevin felt it coming. He didn't wait for the knock. He walked away from his job, his name, his lease, and vanished into the city. No fixed address, borrowed identities, the entire federal government now pulling in one direction behind him. By every rule of every manhunt, this is where the fugitive starts to lose. The net tightens. He slips once. They take him. Except Kevin Poulsen could do the one thing no fugitive in history had ever managed. He could watch the investigation, hunting him. For roughly 17 months, from the winter of 1989 into the spring of 1991, Kevin Poulsen lived without a name. He moved through Los Angeles as other people. A rented room in one part of the city, then another. Rent in cash. A driver's license that belonged to someone who never existed. No utility bill in his real name. No lease anyone could trace. No phone the Bureau could ring and expect Kevin Poulsen to answer. On the nightstand, always, a radio scanner tuned to police and federal frequencies. He slept in daylight with the curtains taped shut against the sun and worked the switches after midnight. He ate out of cans. He lost weight. He stopped saying his own name out loud until it started to feel like a word in a language he no longer spoke. This is the part the myth skips. Living inside your own manhunt isn't glamorous. It's exhaustion. It's flinching at footsteps in the hall. It's lying awake at 4 a.m, listening to the scanner crackle, waiting to hear whether the address a dispatcher just read out is yours. Now add the advantage no other fugitive ever had. The agents hunting him ran their traces and their taps through the same network he lived inside. When they leaned on a switch to close in, that switch answered to him too. He could watch a tap light up before the agent who ordered it knew it was live. So every time they got close, he was already gone. 2 men in an unmarked car outside an apartment building, waiting on a tip. Upstairs, the scanner catches the chatter, the plate, the address, his address, and by the time they climb the stairs, the room holds nothing but a bare mattress and the smell of instant coffee. A lead evaporates. A number goes dead. To the agents, it felt like chasing smoke that could hear them coming. Because it could. And then, with his photo already sitting in a federal case file, he pulled the stunt that turned the entire hunt into a punchline. June 1st, 1990. KIIS-FM was running its contest. Play the songs, count the callers, caller 102 takes the prize. That week the prize was a Porsche 944. Here's how a fugitive wins a sports car on live radio. As the final song faded, Kevin reached into the station's incoming lines and seized them. Everyone. The public was locked out. No stranger's call could land because there were no open lines left for a stranger to reach. Then he sat back and counted, calm as a man dealing cards. 1 caller through, 2. He let them stack up to 101, all his, all fed through on cue, and put the winning call in himself. Caller number 102. Congratulations, the DJ said. You've just won a Porsche 944. A wanted man, his face in a federal file, drove a brand new sports car off the lot under a name he'd invented. It was the fugitive's version of a raised middle finger. You can't find me, and I'll take the car too. For a year and a half, the most powerful surveillance apparatus in the world was outclassed by one exhausted man in a rented room who understood its machinery better than it did. But under the joyride sat something colder. This was no longer a fraud file. Kevin had seen the FBI's wiretaps. Somewhere in the bureau, agents who knew what he'd read were doing the math. Nobody wanted to say out loud. Every day he stayed free was another day he might copy that list, sell it, mail it to a newspaper, hand it to the wrong government. A man who could win a Porsche off the airwaves could burn an entire undercover program with a single phone call. So the Bureau stopped playing the game he kept winning. It couldn't out-hack him. It couldn't corner him in the wires. It couldn't ring a line and find him on the other end. So it flipped the board over. It would put his face in every living room in America, somewhere no switch could protect him, and wait for a stranger to do what no agent could. October 1990. NBC's Unsolved Mysteries. The eerie synths, the grave voice asking America to call in, handed a full segment to Kevin Poulsen. It didn't call him a phone freak or a contest cheat. It branded him a threat to national security, a hacker loose inside the machinery of American espionage. The message to the living rooms was blunt. This man is dangerous, and if you've seen him, call the number on your screen. Then legend takes over. One story has trailed Kevin Poulsen ever since, and you should hear it as legend, because that's what it is. As the segment aired, as the show begged America to phone in and help catch the man who owned the phones, the toll-free tip lines went dead. Silent, as if the ghost had reached through the wires one last time and switched off the very manhunt aimed at him. Did it happen that way? Almost certainly not. Phone systems fail on their own. A flood of calls can crash a tip line with no hacker required, but the story stuck because it's perfect. The untouchable phantom crashing the broadcast built to hunt him. The truth was quieter and much crueler. The tip line didn't stay dead. Somewhere in those millions of living rooms, one ordinary person had just filed Kevin's face away in memory and would carry it into the last place on Earth he'd ever think to watch. April 1991. A Hughes supermarket in Van Nuys, California. Fluorescent lights, shopping carts, the smell of the deli counter. The most ordinary place you can picture. Kevin Poulsen is somewhere in the aisles, 25 now, a year and a half underground, buying groceries like anyone else. A shopper looks at his face and knows it. The federal government never got its hands on him. A stranger with a good memory did. A face recalled from a wanted poster, or that Unsolved Mysteries segment, or the 10 o'clock news matched to the man reaching for something on a shelf. Someone shouts. Store workers move in. Kevin goes down hard on the linoleum, and the man who could hear the hunters coming ends up pinned beside the checkout lanes, knee in his back, cold tile against his cheek, held there until the police arrive. 17 months of wiretaps, traces, and primetime television, and it ended in the time it takes to wrestle a man to the floor. The machine never laid a finger on him. What took him down was the one thing he could never hack, monitor, or reroute: A human being who simply recognized his face. The watchers never caught him. The watch did. You'd think that would be the end of the danger. It was the start of the worst of it. In a 1992 indictment, the government did something it had never done to a hacker. It reached past the fraud, past the wiretapping, past the phone company break-ins, and charged him with espionage. Prosecutors alleged that among the classified material he touched was information tied to a military aircraft, the kind of secret that, in their telling, put him in the same category as a spy selling out his country. Kevin Poulsen became the first hacker in American history to face an espionage charge. Espionage doesn't carry months, it carries decades. At the outer edge, it carries the rest of a life. The man who could listen to everyone was staring at vanishing forever, buried under a charge written for traitors. He had one card left, the truth about what that classified document actually was. The espionage charge had a problem. The document at its center wasn't the crown jewel the word spy implies. Everything in it could be assembled from material already sitting in the public domain, the kind of thing any determined person could dig up in a library. Nobody had smuggled anything anywhere. So the charge that could have buried Kevin Poulsen for life quietly came apart. The espionage count was dropped, a label the government filed and never made stick. What he pleaded to was real, and he owned it. Fraud, wiretapping, the phone company break-ins. In the mid-1990s, he was sentenced to around 51 months, at the time, the longest prison term ever handed to an American for hacking. The sentence wasn't the thing that broke him. What broke him was buried in the government's own discovery file, the thick stack of paperwork that lays out, page by page, exactly how a case gets built, informant by informant. Picture him with it: a fluorescent room, a metal table, a guard somewhere near the door. Kevin has been turning those pages for hours, reading his own downfall in other people's handwriting, who the Bureau leaned on, who pointed where, who handed them the one idea that finally worked. Stop chasing him through the switches. Get his face on television. Wait for a stranger. He reaches the name of the source who gave them that idea. Justin Peterson, Agent Steele, the friend from the cramped apartment, the one who hummed tones down the line and named the switch before the sound faded, the one who drank the flat beer and laughed at the 3 a.m. jokes, the one who wanted exactly what Kevin had. While the two of them were finishing each other's tricks, Peterson had been sitting across a metal table from federal agents with a case of his own hanging over his head, his own charges, his own years on the line. And he'd found the one thing he could trade to make them go away. Kevin. You'll never take him on the wires. You can hear the pitch going. He hears you coming. Put his face on TV and let somebody else find him. He handed them the strategy that pulled Kevin out of the switches and dropped him on the linoleum of a Van Nuys supermarket. Then he took his deal and walked. Kevin's hands stopped moving on the page. He read the name again to be sure it said what it said. He'd spent 17 months reading every machine in the state for the faintest sign of a threat. He watched the wires. He watched the scanners. He watched the taps light up before the agents did. It never once occurred to him to watch the man sitting next to him. The God who heard everything never heard that one coming. Then came the sentence inside the sentence. After his release, he was barred from touching a computer for 3 years. For a man whose whole mind ran on machines, 3 years without a keyboard took away the only language he had ever really thought in. Years gone. Keyboards forbidden. The quiet, grinding price of proving a point about the surveillance state. But this is where the story turns into something you don't see coming. When Kevin Poulsen came back, he didn't disappear and he didn't reoffend. He became a journalist, a serious one, a respected security reporter at Wired, turning that same obsessive understanding of systems on the people hiding inside them and dragging them into the light. And then he did the thing that reframes everything you've just watched. Alongside the programmer and activist Aaron Swartz, Poulsen helped build a tool called Dead Drop, later reborn, after Swartz's death, as Secure Drop. Its entire purpose is to let whistleblowers hand secrets to journalists without the surveillance state ever seeing who they are. It runs today in newsrooms all over the world. The man who once climbed inside the FBI's wiretaps spent the back half of his life building the tool designed to shield people from exactly that kind of watching. He's not a spotless hero. He was a burglar and a fraud who taunted a nation while it hunted him. Both things are true. But his story proves the one idea the government never wanted proven. All its power to watch everyone rested on ordinary infrastructure. And infrastructure is only ever as secure and as righteous as whoever happens to control it. The all-seeing eye had an owner it never knew about. A kid in an apartment, listening. And if you want to see another outsider who turned a giant's own machine against it, that story is waiting right here.